Well, then you're too dark and you can't really see the peacocks.
I feel like it's just a lose-lose.
Oh,
there aren't any
peacock,
branches.
let me fly!
Book. So a little bit ago, I was reached out to by Isabel Kenyon from Fly on the Wall Press because they are helping represent Gray J. Wall and his new poetry book called The Sound of Revolution. I love working with Fly on the Wall Press because, as I said in one of my last poetry vlogs, I'm starting to figure out that I really like the genre, and they always give me really interesting poetry. Last time they gave me Confess, and this time Revolution. So I gotta be honest, when I was initially reading the book, I was a little bit confused. Well, confused isn't the right word, but I was kind of like expecting like really political, like change, calling, emotion evoking stuff. And it's got poems like that, but it's also got like kind of more personal, intimate poems that are just kind of like not surface level political. Like, there's one poem that I particularly like. It's called A Man Sits on a Train, and this whole poem is just about this guy on his journey. They even have a little photo by Wall himself, just talking about the experience, and like it's like he's waiting for something besides just getting to his destination, but we're never quite sure what it is. And at the very end, I really love this part. It says, eventually the train grinds towards its halt. As it does, suddenly, there in the inbox, ping! Double-clicked, his eyes eagerly scan the message, which simply reads, you have reached your destination. And I think that's just so interesting because I felt like when I was reflecting about the poems later, it kind of reminded me of the whole stop and smell the roses metaphor or cliche, whatever you want to call it. Because it's like we're always going in our lives, and a lot of times we don't stop to appreciate the journey because we're always focused on that destination. We're always focused on what comes next. And sometimes it's not even the journey that we need to pay attention to, but like we should. But it's just the fact that we need to appreciate taking the time to arrive and appreciate where we are. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And another poem that I really liked was The Bomb. And you know, when I first read the title, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the political, like, revolutionizing, like, poem that I was expecting. But again, there's that little twist at the end where he says, if I had the know-how to make a single thing, a bomb it would be of love and peace and understanding. And he goes on a little bit more about this, like, love bomb. And then that kind of reminded me of the other cliche metaphor, whatever, of kill him with kindness. And the fact that, like, then that got me thinking again and reflecting about how is this the sound of revolution. So maybe revolution doesn't have to be violent. I think we have this mentality, especially in the Western world, that revolution is like this change that's like really difficult to achieve, and we have to physically fight for it and verbally fight for it. But like, maybe revolution is just changing of someone's mindset. Maybe it's changing your own mindset. And so that's why, too, I think it's really interesting, and maybe it would be more impactful if the poem was at the end of the book instead of the beginning. But when you actually read the titular poem, The Sound of Revolution, Wall says that if you place your ear to the ground and listen in silence, as a small green shoot cracks through the expanse of sun-dried soil, as a grasping fish swims beyond the slick of ill-spilt oil, as the birdsong returns to a summer's morn, and in your breath you hear the sound of revolution. But maybe on the other hand, it's a good thing it's at the beginning, because I wouldn't be surprised if other people like me went into this thinking it was going to be really political and violent and like opinionated and whatnot. And they are also kind of surprised that it's not entirely that. So maybe that's why that poem's at the beginning. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a really interesting analysis of revolution and perspective on it. I think overall the poems are really well written. I like, especially with some of the poems that were written before the other poems. Like it'll say, like I just saw one. It'll say, it'll give like a date that something is in reference to. Like there's a poem called In the Air, and the subtitle is Extinction Rebellion Opening Ceremony 6/10/2019. Yeah, I think just overall it was a really interesting read. It was definitely different than my other poetry books that I've read, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. I liked that it kind of challenged my own thoughts, and if my interpretation of Wall's poetry is correct, that's exciting for me because I like being right. But, maybe you have a different perspective of what revolution means, and maybe in reading these poems, that might give it to you. So definitely do recommend. Thank you again to Isabel Kenyon at Fly on the Wall for recommending this to me. And for real, this is my last blog and vlog of 2020. I'm very excited to get back to you next year, and look out for those posts. Thanks.